Hey guys, Chris here. I'm now Ukrainian Canadian. Today is January 3rd, 2023, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So, first of all, I just want to let you know, guys, I got a little bit sick over the holidays, so I'm trying to recover as best as I can. So please bear with me. Now, I really wanted to make a video today because there's a lot of news that happened in the last few days. The main news is that the Ukrainian forces struck with HIMARS systems a school complex where a lot of Russian mobilized soldiers were located. And this was in the town of Makivka, just outside of Donetsk city. So you can see that Makivka is on the eastern side of Donetsk. And allegedly, the Ukrainian sources say that um, over hundreds of dead Russian soldiers and wounded Russian soldiers following this attack. And this created so much backlash within pro-Russian military channels on Telegram and also on state television that the Russian military had to say something about it. And now they said that 63 Russian soldiers died following this attack. Now, we all know that this is a bunch of lies. First of all, this complex is massive, and I seriously doubt that it only had 60 soldiers at the time of the strike. The videos that were circulated online show a completely leveled building. There's nothing remaining from it, um, just broken concrete everywhere. And the fact that even the Russian military back in March, if you remember, said that only about 1,300 Russian soldiers died during a special military operation already indicates that they're always going to be lying about the casualties. So I believe truly that the casualty rate is in the hundreds, and this is really weakening the Russian position in Donetsk. They've been struggling a lot on this front for the last 8 years. And this is where the Ukrainian defenses are the strongest as well. But this is only really giving it's a major blow for them because, these also were recently mobilized soldiers from December. If I'm not mistaken, these soldiers were from Samara. And so, the fact that they barely had a couple weeks and they died so quickly also indicates how incompetent the Russian military is in stacking so much, so many assets in just one place. And also, what created this explosion, this massive detonation as well, is the fact that they also stored ammunition in this building. So it's a powder keg that was just waiting to be struck. And according to sources as well, the Ukrainian forces managed to pinpoint this area because of very high usage of cell phone activity in the school complex. So they kind of deducted that there was probably a lot of Russian soldiers and probably as well local civilians that are pro-Ukrainian that gave them the intel to strike this school complex. Overall, massive, massive win for the Ukrainian forces. Um, Killing outright hundreds of soldiers like that is a huge blow for any army. So that's good news. And the other massive strike that Ukrainian forces did was in Chulakivka. You can see here, this is in Kherson Oblast, just outside of Kherson city. And according to the general staff, the enemy's losses amounted to about 500 wounded and eliminated occupiers. So this is another massive strike on concentrated Russian troops in Kherson city, or close to Kherson city. And the last massive strike that occurred yesterday was in Svatove. And this was an ammunition depot that the Ukrainian forces struck. And locals wrote that the rocket strikes hit a wholesale warehouse where Russian troops have been transporting ammunition for the past 2 weeks. So the Ukrainian forces were probably very methodical. They were waiting until the Russians were done transporting all the possible ammunition towards this warehouse to strike it, right? Kind of just like making one big blow. And this is directly going to impact their defenses in Svatove. I think that this is really, really going to weaken their defense lines, their first line of defense here just outside of Svatove, and it's going to make the job easier for the Ukrainian forces to push through towards the city of Svatove. I think that in the next couple of weeks, this is going to be a game-changing event. So hopefully, let's see, we'll see some gains around this area very quickly. So overall, many good news in terms of many Ukrainian strikes on logistical lines and also on large concentrations of Russian troops. So that's great news. Now, the second slide is about an article that I found, and I've discussed that many times. And this is a really good article because I really, really believe in this. And the title of this article is that Russia has to undergo denazification after war based on German model. So I wholeheartedly agree. Germany, obviously, coming off from a very terrible legacy of the atrocities that they've committed following World War II, they had to undergo a massive re-education worth decades. And look where Germany is at now. It's a prosperous, peaceful nation, one of the most powerful economies in the world. And I think that this is the same path that Russia needs to follow. We can no longer tolerate seeing Russia the way they are now. They've been dangling nuclear usage of nuclear weapons over the West far too long. In the last 10 months, they've been indicating that they can strike London, Paris, Washington. They've been creating these stories that just watch us, we'll destroy the entire world if we need to. It's too dangerous to have a Russia like that and to allow them to continue operating like this. Now, it might be optimistic, right? But um, I think that really this is going to be important. And for the next decades, it's going to take decades to reform the Russian population because, you know, unfortunately, there still is amongst a lot of Western politicians. I can think of Macron or other politicians like Schultz that believe that this is only Putin's war and not the Russian people's war. And they still try to find a diplomatic approach through peace negotiations and things like that. But I think we need to start looking away that this is Putin's war and that this is the Russian people's war and that the fact that the Russian people haven't done a single thing in the last 10 months clearly indicates that they're not opposed and that they're not going to do anything about it. When I had, in the early phase of this war back in late February of last year and March, I had some optimism that the Russian people wouldn't allow this to continue, that the Russian people would protest and do something about it. It quickly evaporated after months and months of that optimism and seeing no action from the Russian side. So I think that when Ukraine will be victorious, and I truly believe in that, Russia cannot be allowed to continue existing in the way that it exists right now, through its government system, through the way that its population functions and believes, and the education that they get. There's going to be a lot of necessary reforms, and also demilitarizing the Russian state. That's going to be very, very important as well. Now, it's easier said than done, and we'll have to see what's going to happen. But I think that there's a lot of factors that we need to take into account, and that this is not Putin's war. This is officially the Russian people's war against the Ukrainian people. And the Russians have made it very clear that they want to destroy and kill as many Ukrainians as they can. So, unfortunately, this war is going to be very long because the Russian people are not going to do a single thing about it. And I'm very confident in that. The last thing I wanted to say is that there's been a little movement on the map. So officially, at least part of Veliki Potomkin Island, that is just south of Kherson City, has been liberated by the Ukrainian forces. As you can see here, the northern part of, at least the northern part of this island complex has been liberated by the Ukrainian forces. If you guys might or might not have remembered, the Russian forces have been doing some scouting around this area. They have been probably positioning some of their small little groups of Russian soldiers to hit Kherson City from here. So this further protects Kherson more from, potential Russian attacks with mortar shells and things like that. So that's great news. And I think in conjunction with the news that the Ukrainian forces on New Year's Eve struck the town of Chulakivka, that is also right about 20 kilometers outside of this island. And I think that this perhaps could indicate a path that Ukrainian forces might try to take to cross the river, the Dnipro River, and get to the other side of the Dnipro River. On maybe that's what they're going to try. They're going to try to do. I don't know, but overall, that's great news, and I think that we're definitely waiting for the next counteroffensive that the Ukrainian forces are going to do on the southern front, right? It could come from Kherson, directly Kherson city, or as I've said, it could also be in Zaporizhia. But we'll have to see, right? The Ukrainian forces are being very secret, and I think it's very important that it's being kept that way. And for sure, the next few weeks, we're going to see some movements on the Ukrainian side, and hopefully a lot of good news coming off from Svatove and Kremina. So that's that. I have two videos for you guys, and the first one is Prigozhin explaining to his audience why his Wagner PMC, private military company, has so much trouble taking Bakhmut. Let's see what he has to say. Everyone has a question. When are you taking Artyomovsk? He says Artyomovsk, which is Bakhmut, it was the old name for Bakhmut, is a fortress in every house. So the guys are fighting for every house. Sometimes more than one day, sometimes fighting for weeks for single house. Took one house, second house, third house, and he says, what is breaking through the defense? They'll tell you what it is. These are soldiers. It's taking one house today that is breaking through the defense, and behind that house, there's more defense, right? Says Prigozhin, and not one defense. How many lines of defense in Artyomovsk? If we say 500, we probably won't be wrong. A line of defense every 10 meters. We're lacking vehicles, BMP-3s, 100 millimeter shells in order to move through Artyomovsk quicker and with more confidence, say these Russian Wagner soldiers. We're lacking ammunitions and armored vehicles. So yeah, guys, so you can see that obviously Wagner and Prigozhin are not going to be taking Bakhmut in the nearby future, and I seriously doubt they're going to be able to do it at all. The fact that it's really become a fortress and their morale is just low, right? We've seen how many dead soldiers are lying on the front lines just before Bakhmut. There's no way these soldiers are going to be able to take that town, in my opinion. And also, the last point, as you can see here, them complaining that they're lacking vehicles, ammunitions, is also an indication that there is also some sort of a competition, a fight between the Russian general staff and the Wagner PMC over who gets what in terms of military assets. You can see that probably Surovikin is not happy at the fact that Wagner, has so much, has been giving so much, let's say, freedom and has pretty much been capable of conducting their own operations, has been given the green light. So I think there's clearly some sort of internal fighting going on between Wagner and the Russian general staff. There's no doubt about it. Thus why so many of these soldiers are complaining to Shoigu, Surovikin, that they're even using slurs against them on public videos to complain about the fact that they're not getting anything from the Russian general staff. So let's see what's going to happen in nearby future with that. But clearly, this is an indication of how how poor things are going for the Russian soldiers in Bakhmut. And the other video is just, it comes with my second slide here, indicating how Russia needs to truly undergo reforms following the end of this war. Because, as you can see on Russian state television, the narrative is still the same. And let's hear what she has to say. It's a very quick video, but she says that we're ready for negotiations. The Ukrainian side says no. So we're going to the end. The end it seems, when there are no more Ukrainians. So they're on this genocidal path of killing as many Ukrainians as they can to, you know, to showcase that Russia is clearly the superior nation. So they're on this, they're going to go until the end. There's no doubt about it. The Russians will not stop at anything. These hundreds of losses for them is just more ground meat that they're going to keep making and keep bringing out to the front lines. So that's why the Ukrainian forces need to win this, and why the Ukrainian forces need to keep getting ammunition from the West and keep getting the support from the West to be able to finish this war once and for all without any negotiations that go in favor, or peace agreement that go in favor for Russia. That's really important. So that's it, guys. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. Leave me a comment about what you think about Russian denazification, the reforms that are going to be necessary in the aftermath of this conflict. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for your support.